Sixers. 10, 9, 8, 76ers.
What's going on, everyone? This is UK 76ers. My name is Ben Glasspool, and on Monday evening, the Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Utah Jazz in Utah by 123 points to 134. Now, first off the bat, quick apology. I was planning on getting this out yesterday, but I went to go open my laptop to get the recording done and the editing and all that, and there was a massive update they needed doing, so I couldn't get it done yesterday. That's my fault. I should have checked beforehand. Other than that, usual announcement I gotta make. USA Sports merch, check them out for all the sports merch you want. If that's basketball, if that's baseball, if that's football, if it's ice hockey, you click through the link that I'll provide in the description below. You not only help USA Sports merch out, which is UK-based business, but it helps me out a ton as well. So if you can check those guys out, that'll be a massive help for me. Also, special thanks to Visible, who have once again been emailing me over the stats for the games instantaneously, it seems. Really easy to use stats, easy to interpret, easy to figure out. Their site has way more. You could probably take a deep dive into any game, any player. Just give it a whirl. It's a really fantastic app and really great use. And finally, myself and Sixers Bobby, on Saturday, I believe, we recorded a podcast looking at our All-Star predictions, how the things have gone for the Sixers. I think we did it the game after the Portland game, so we talked about the Carmelo Anthony fourth quarter, etc. If you could listen to that once again, greatly appreciated. It's available on Apple Pods and indeed on Spotify. Again, I will link that in the description below. That's me and Sixers Bobby's podcast, and on top of that, we are looking for guests. If you guys do want to come on, my email or indeed my Twitter, or if you want to leave it in the comments here, that'd be great. There's my email that's always provided on my Twitter bio, but it's whatever's easiest if you want to get in contact. You don't have to be from the UK, don't even have to be a Sixers fan, you can be any sort of fan. As long as you can talk basketball, as long as you've got a computer that we can link up with, then we'll be able to chat to you, no problem. So that's the announcements. Let's talk about this game. Now, this is the Ben Simmons game that we lost. And I feel a bit sorry for Ben Simmons because he played fantastically well. He had 42 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists. And I think now since the second Boston Celtics game, which is 3 games after the James Harden debacle sort of finished off, with obviously him going to the Nets. Well, since then, he's averaged, 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists, something like that. So he's near enough averaging a triple-double with 18 points on top of that. He's turned a corner, seemingly. And this was just all we wanted from the guy. This wasn't... Ben Simmons didn't just switch on with three-point shooting. He didn't start having a mean mid-range game. He did stuff we knew he can do. He just hasn't been doing it. And that was the most frustrating thing we found with Ben Simmons at the start of this season. We knew what he can do. We knew he could be explosive. We knew he could be, an absolute menace in transition in the open court, but he wasn't doing that. This game, he was. Now, the Utah Jazz in Rudy Gobert have a 7-foot rim protector, arguably the best rim protector in the league. Look, people were very quick to, have a go at Rudy, saying, "Oh, he's not that good. He's just, he's just a tall guy that's got lucky with his size. He isn't actually that good." Look, he is a good rim protector. You don't win Defensive Player of the Year, 2 or 3 times from just being tall. You got to have more than that. And he's a very good defender. But Ben Simmons made him look a chump. Ben Simmons was going into his chest. He was blowing by him. It was making it so difficult for an elite rim protector, which Rudy Gobert is, an elite rim protector, to keep him out of the paint and keep him from getting buckets. On top of this, he was getting to the free throw line. Now, in Ben Simmons' first season, he was averaging 56% from the free throw line. Not great. And people, again, like to say, "Oh, he hasn't improved. And we've already talked about his defensive improvement because he's gone to an all-NBA defender over the last 2 seasons. But his free throw shooting is improving, and he's at 67% this season. Look, that's not a world-beating percentage, and you do still want a bit more. But, to leap, almost 11-12% from your first season, that's something, isn't it? And in this game, he was 12 or 13 from the free throw line, 92%. Is he going to shoot 92% for the rest of the season? Hell no. But it's something. It's a sign that he's improving. But it was just a fantastic game for Ben Simmons. 42 points. He could have had more, potentially. I think in that fourth quarter, he hit a bit of a brick wall because Royce O'Neal's doing a pretty good job of him defensively. And therefore, he had to do a lot of turnaround and fadeaways. And it was quite hard for him to get his points. But that was a testament to just how Ben Simmons was doing it. They only really figured out how to keep him a bit quiet, at the very least, in that fourth quarter. And despite that, he was still facilitating. When I talk about how good Ben Simmons was, Tobias Harris had a 36-10 performance. And, people like Harris were stepping up. Dwight Howard had one of the best games I've seen him have in a while. And, we had no Joel Embiid or playing Mike Scott at the 5. And as soon as you heard that this was the case, we were like, yeah, we're probably not going to win this game. So all we wanted to see was what can Ben Simmons do? Can Tobias Harris step up? Because one of the criticism I had is that when Embiid isn't playing, no one wants to step up and say, look, I'll get this team a victory here. And we saw that Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris were willing to put in do the dirty work to try and get us to win. Did we win? No. But when Embiid isn't playing against a Detroit, or when Embiid isn't playing against an OKC, or a Timberwolves, for example, whatever, this bodes well, because if we see that, then games where we previously lose because we don't have Embiid could now be turned into wins if Ben Simmons and Harris play like this. Am I expecting Ben Simmons to knock down a 40-point near-enough triple-double every game? Hell no. But if he can get 20 to 25 points, with his usual assist rates, with his usual rebounds, and Harris can get just a bit over his average, looking at, again, the 25, 30-point mark, then why not? Why not? And I think the thing is, Utah Jazz are a really, really good team. They've got the best record in the NBA for a reason. We saw firsthand just how good they are, be that from three, be that defensively. Sometimes they did seem to lock us down a bit, but admittedly, we still got 123 points. That says something about how well we're doing, or maybe it's an indictment on their defense. I don't know. They have one of the best defensive ratings in the league, net ratings as well, and indeed offensive ratings. They've got the best, one of the best everything. This was a hard team to beat, and they didn't seem depleted. They had Donovan Mitchell, they had Gobert, they had Clarkson. We'll go on Clarkson in a sec. They had Joe Ingles. The only player they weren't missing was Mike Conley, but they're a deep roster that people can step up quite simply. So Ben Simmons was on Donovan Mitchell, as you can imagine, and Donovan Mitchell managed to put up 24 points on a really efficient rate. Ben Simmons did his job. But Jordan Clarkson came in, and those of you who saw on my Twitter, I was saying I'm worried about Jordan Clarkson. And in one of my bets I did, I had Jordan Clarkson to get over, 4 threes of this game. I could see it from a mile off. I remember when he was on the Cavs and he came to the Wells Fargo Center and completely blew us up. Prototypically, he's everything that Sixers hate in terms of his mold. Because it's okay when, stars go off against you. But when seemingly the Sixers always have this tendency for just some, Jordan Clarkson's not a bad player. He's probably definitely in the running for, he's probably the favourite to win Sixth Man of the Year. He's a good player, but he's by no means an absolute world beater. He's not an all-star caliber player, but he'll go off against us. He's a ball handling guard, a guy who can shoot from three, get his own shot, etc. He's prototypically a guy that we'll just struggle against. And you've seen it before with even someone like Kevin Huerter has gone off against us. That sort of mold of player. Like, they're not the same players, but do you know what I mean? That sort of not an all-star level guy, but not quite, an absolute washed player. It's just that sort of middle ground. And we struggle against players like Jordan Clarkson. So I was worried about this. And then when you saw it, he was seemingly not missing from some pretty obnoxious shots. He plays quite a simple game, but things we just never really counted it. And, Jordan Clarkson finished on 40 points. He was 8 of 13 from three. Lights out. Really good. I think for the neutral, it was really fun to watch. I didn't enjoy watching it because, I don't want to see the Sixers get absolutely ruined by Jordan Clarkson. But, fair play to the guy. He did really well. And Ben Simmons can't guard everyone. He had to guard Donovan Mitchell, because I think if Clarkson was not guarded by Simmons, then, Mitchell gets these shots and vice versa. Someone had to go off, really. We didn't quite have the guys that could guard both. I mean, you could argue Matisse, but the thing is Matisse didn't get too many minutes, which was quite surprising, especially when Danny Green was really quite out of form. We would have thought maybe give those minutes to Matisse, but I still wasn't quite sure what Doc was doing with those rotations. Again, I will criticize the 2K rotations. What I mean by 2K rotations is all the bench goes in, all the bench goes out, all the bench goes in, all the bench goes out. It's not staggered. And what I think Doc should have done in this is I've got two players Simmons and Harris. One of those has to be on the court at any one time if we want to get anything from this game. And for some reason, he just didn't do that. I think he wised up to that in the second half when he realized, look, this team is absolutely atrocious when we don't have one of those two guys on the floor. But it was almost too little too late. So that was a real shame. I didn't like those rotations. Danny Green looked very poor. And those of you who did listen to my podcast, I did with Sixers Bobby on the Saturday just gone, we like Danny Green in the sense that, look, to contract aside, if you have him, say you had him on $2 million a year for a year, 2 years, I don't know, whatever. It would be a really great player to have on this bench, but you don't really want him starting. I think he struggled. He looked slow. I mean, some of the criticisms I've had of him in the past, the shot where either it falls or it doesn't. He had 2 air balls for 3 as a 3-point specialist. That's not good enough. But I won't get too much on his case. It was always an uphill battle. He's against a really good Utah Jazz team, and we didn't have Joel Embiid. We weren't expecting to win this game, and we can't solely attribute a loss to Danny Green not turning up, who's like, the fourth best player on that starting five. That's not fair at all. But we'll talk about Danny Green just a bit later on with regards to trades, because I think that's something that needs to be addressed. So we actually had a pretty explosive first quarter. We had 42 points in that first quarter, but Utah had 35. Simmons had our first 8. Tobias had a quick 7. I think Simmons finished that quarter with 19 points. Harris finished it with 14. This is already an illustration of just how reliant we were on them. In that first quarter, 33 of our 42 came from those two guys. Everyone else trying to score was like pulling teeth. It was so difficult to get any sort of momentum from the guys. They were aggressive, as we know. Pick and roll defense, though. This is something that I've always been annoyed about, by the fact that once the team sets a screen on this Sixers defense, it's see you later. You've blown past them. You can get to the rim. You can get that 3-point shot, and it's easy to see why. We don't switch. Now, sometimes you can't switch. You don't want to switch Donovan Mitchell onto Dwight Howard, or you don't want to switch, Mike Scott onto a quick, nippy person like Jordan Clarkson or whatever else. But there are some instances when, say, you've got Ben Simmons, or say you've got Matisse Thybulle, or if you maybe Danny Green, because he's not the worst defender ever. I know he's a bit slow nowadays, but he's still not the worst defender ever, or Tobias Harris. Why don't you switch? Because the thing is, when Clarkson gets a screen set for him, goes round it, the guy that was guarding him is completely blown by, and the guy who was guarding the screener is nowhere to be seen. You gotta switch, and this is how they keep getting easy buckets from 3, and it's easy buckets from when they set the screen and when they go around the corner and they have a layup at the hoop. It's because we don't switch, or we don't step up, and we need to address this because it's really not rocket science. And look, Utah have the luxury of being a really good switchy team. They got Mitchell, Ingles, Royce O'Neal, and Conley normally. I mean, Clarkson as well, but he's not the most fantastic defender in the world. And off the bench, like Niang can do a half decent job. They're really good at switching everything, and that means pick and rolls are very easy for them to defend. But they solely utilize the pick and roll in their offense. It is, Joe Ingles was the main ball handler with Mike Conley out. So Gobert sets the screen. Joe Ingles goes round it. Either he has a 3 or he just lays it off to Gobert, who then either gets fouled or finishes at the hoop. It was far, far too easy. And this is something that really needs addressing. It's not just been prevalent in this Utah game. It's not just been prevalent because Joel Embiid wasn't playing. It's been prevalent in the Philadelphia 76ers since the start of the season, since day dot. We need to sort it now, because when we go against teams like, if we got to the playoffs, well, we will get to the playoffs, but if we go against the Nets, for example, Harden will torch us, Durant will torch us, Irving will torch us. If we go against the Celtics, Brown will torch us, Tatum will torch us. This needs sorting out now, because it's such an easy way to get on offense against the Sixers. So that's just one thing. Well, it's always been an issue that I've had, as you guys will know, but that needs sorting ASAP. And this flimsy pick and roll defense, well, like I said, Jazz exploited it so much. That's why Clarkson could get the shot he wanted. But when Simmons and Harris went on the floor, the Jazz went on a 7-0 run, which then moved up to a 10-0 run, which then moved up to a 14-4 run, which then moved up to a 23-8 run. We doom ourselves to fail when we bring out that bench unit, which doesn't have Milton. Do I think Milton would have saved us? No, but we are already a depleted bench unit on a unit which was already very, very thin in what it can really do. Furkan Korkmaz has shown once again that we can't rely on the guy. And look, I love it when Furkan does stuff. Why wouldn't I? He's a Sixer player, and when he does stuff, it's beneficial for the team. I.e., the Pacers game when in that fourth quarter he helped us win. But you can't rely on the guy. He's a 3-point shooter that doesn't seem to shoot the 3 that well. He overcomplicates his offense to the point we end up doing like fadeaway mid-ranges towards the end of the shot clock. He's not that good. And these minutes should go to Isaiah Joe, who this season has looked like a better 3-point shooter, a less erratic player, and better on defense. Furkan should be packaged up and sent away somewhere, because he's on an expiring and someone will take him. But again, we'll talk about trades in just a moment. Dwight Howard. Now, you guys will know I've been often criticizing Dwight Howard because he does a lot of stupid stuff. 14 and 12 this game, and he was fantastic. He didn't do anything stupid. Like, he had a few fouls, but it was nothing major. It was nothing like, what are you doing, Dwight, as we so often have. That's often the grievance we have with the guy, is that he does something completely brain dead. But he was very good this evening. He came off the bench because we started Mike Scott, and I did quite like that idea, because I thought the idea would be, you have to start Mike Scott, you draw Gobert out the paint, and then that frees up space for Simmons and Harris to do what they want with it. That was fair enough. I like that decision. Admittedly, Mike Scott only played, like, I don't know, 15 minutes, but he was 2 or 2 from 3, so that's something. But yeah, when Dwight came in, he was really energetic, good minutes. Just more of the same. That's all we want. It's just an uncomplicated demand that we have of Dwight Howard. It's just, don't be awful. When Embiid isn't playing, all we need him to be is not awful. We can't hemorrhage points when Embiid is off the floor. And tonight, look, of course we lost. We must have hemorrhaged some points with Dwight, but he was still pretty solid, and those are the sort of performances we need. That brings me on to the trade, and it brings on to what I think has been, how this West Coast trip has gone. It was 3-1, and I think you could make the claim it could have been 2-2 if Melo doesn't go off as we did, but he did. The Phoenix game was a bit of a disaster, and again, I do apologize for not having a video up for that, but that was Valentine's weekend, so unfortunately I was a bit busy. But yeah, it was a 3-1, a 1-3 West Coast trip. And I think this is the perfect time to assess what the Sixers are going to be doing, because we've got a month away till the trade deadline or so. Now, I've made it no secret that I want to get a few trades done. And we'll hop back to Danny Green. And I've told you I do quite like Danny Green, but the thing is, his contract is on an expiring $15 million deal contract. And that is an extremely attractive contract to trade. So, can you package that in a deal for Kyle Lowry? That is numero uno on my list. That's exactly what I want to do. Of course, they're going to have to be throwing other stuff in there. Maybe a young guy, maybe a few picks. Of course, some more expiring so that we can get that salary up to match Kyle Lowry's. We absolutely try and do that. We've talked about Kyle Lowry and why I think he would come here and why I think he'd be a good player on the Sixers. And indeed, I talked about it on my podcast. I'm not going to relay that same bits of information again, but that's something I'd go for. Recently, it's been revealed that we're looking at DeLon Wright and George Hill. Now, in both of these scenarios, I would take another player from those teams. In the Detroit scenario, you trade Mike Scott, some other guy, Burkham Korkmaz maybe, I don't know, and then second rounder maybe for DeLon Wright and Wayne Ellington for the extra bit of shooting. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Wayne Ellington whenever I've seen him play against us. Indeed, when I've seen him play against other teams, he always seems pretty solid. Similarly, if you go the OKC route, and I think I would prefer George Hill here. So this is over DeLon Wright, that is. But again, you do a similar sort of trade, if not a carbon copy of it, for George Hill. And then I also would take Mike Muscala. Now, as much as I've said Dwight Howard had a good game, Mike Muscala can play the 4, can play the 5, he can be at stretch 5, and we can see when we have a stretch 5 on the floor, a real stretch 5, not just Mike Scott, Ben Simmons can go to work a hell of a lot easier. There's also Asana Ilyasova that's without the team at the moment that I would take. And I'm not sure what's going on with Bielitsa stuff. Maybe we just get him in the buyout. I don't know. But here is my ideal scenario when the trade deadline ends and say when the buyout market's all done and dusted. I want at the 5, I'd want Embiid, I would want Muscala, and I'd want Ilyasova maybe. At the 4, I want Harris and I want Bielitsa. And then you can argue, Muscala is the one that floats between those two positions. At the 3, that's where it gets a bit difficult, because assuming you've traded Danny Green, who can you put there? Maybe just put another 2 guard there. Maybe even put Matisse Thybulle there if you have that much faith in him, and just hope that everyone else does such a good job on offense that it's not that big a deal. But the thing is that Matisse might be packaged in a trade if we've got to get Kyle Lowry. I don't know. This is all just me just talking, what I think could happen, what I would want to happen. There's no sort of strong source that this is going to happen. There are indeed a few links and a few murmurs here and there, but there is nothing to suggest that what I'm saying is going to happen. But it's just fun to talk trades. At the point, you have Kyle Lowry, and then that would be Ben Simmons to the 4, then you move Harris to the 3. There, you've sorted it. You have Kyle Lowry at the point, Seth Curry, and then you'd have the likes of Ellington off the bench. You'd have the likes of, Shake Milton, maybe whether or not he's in a trade it will remain to be seen. But that's how I'd go about my business. You find a way to get Kyle Lowry in, you find a way to get Bielitsa, to get Ellington, to get George Hill still, if you can, and to get one of Ilyasova or Muscala, both if you really think you need to. And then you make the various alterations with this roster. That would 100% mean Danny Green goes if, in this scenario. Same with Mike Scott. I would assume the same with Korkmaz. What happens with Maxey, Matisse, and Milton, I don't know. But I struggle to see how we can get someone. If we don't get Kyle Lowry, I don't see any of those three going. If we do get Kyle Lowry, one of those three might be gone. But that's just the nature of the situation. We're in a win now mode. With Embiid playing the way he is and with how delicate he is in terms of his injuries, I can't just say, well, let's wait 3 years down the line because I don't know if he's going to break his leg or something in next week. I'd rather know that we go for it now and not get there, or wait 3 years only for it to be, our hearts to be crushed by the fact that Embiid can't play because of injury or whatever else, or at least he can't play at the same level that we expect. So that was a Utah game, and indeed talks about the trades that I would want, that I'm hoping. Look, Morey will make the correct decision. I have complete faith in that guy, but that's sort of how I'm hoping this thing will pan out, and I think it will pan out somewhat like that. May not be the same names, but it will be that shooting, it will be that veteran experience, it will be a bit of defense. We all know what we need on this roster. It's no secret. So we've just got to hope Daryl Morey goes out and produces. And I think after this West Coast trip, we're seeing the issues that this team has. And I feel there's a trade brewing for the Philadelphia 76ers. Anyway, we have the Houston Rockets this evening. And I'll see you tomorrow again for that game. Bye now, guys.